women in Joyce's life. Without them, none of what was celebrated last year could have been born. To rectify the situation, today, we will hear a variety of pieces either written by or about women. These are, in a certain sense, the godmothers of Ulysses. Who were some of the women in Joyce's life? Mary Joyce, his mother, is an obvious choice. She was a huge influence on the unfolding of Portrait of the Artist as a young man, as well as Ulysses itself. Without her, James would not have been born. Nora Barnacle, who eventually became his wife, stuck by him from the time they first met. On June 16, 1904, until he died. Lucia Joyce, his daughter, on whom he doted and for whom he sought tirelessly relief for her mental illness. His long-suffering Aunt May Murray, to whom he was always writing to have her go out and check if things were such if things such as the color of the bricks on a certain building were as he remembered them. She was in her 80s. And one of the things I discovered when we went to Dublin, we visited the James Joyce Center and we asked about this communication that he had with his aunt. And apparently he would write to her and ask for information and she would just write back anything. He thought he was getting the real deal. If you were in your 80s, I don't think you'd be running around Dublin either. Sylvia Beach, his longtime benefactress and owner of the Parisian bookstore Shakespeare and Company. Adrienne Monnier, a longtime supporter of Joyce, owner of La Maison des Amis des Livres, just opposite Shakespeare and Company, and co-conspirator with Sylvia Beach. Jane Heap and Margaret Anderson, the publishers of the Little Review, who put their reputations and their magazine on the line by publishing Ulysses in installments. They were put on trial in New York, found guilty of obscenity, and paid a fine for their efforts. There was also Harriet Shaw Weaver, a longtime secret benefactress who allowed Joyce the leisure to write what became game-changing pieces of literature, which has been translated into countless languages. Undoubtedly, there are many other women who, like Bridget, were either godmothers or foster mothers to Joyce's great enterprise. Now, let me introduce to you this afternoon the people who will be fostering our feelings of gratitude to these women. They're in alphabetical order, but they're not necessarily in alphabetical order here. Would you please stand when I call you? Clive Brewer was born and brought up in the UK. He emigrated to Montreal in 1975 and has lived here ever since. He worked in IT for 40 years and now enjoys other things such as history, literature, hiking, and acting in community theater. During the last few years, he has appeared with Lakeshore Players, Persephone Productions, Hudson Players Club, and the Westmount Group Dramatis Personae. Thank you, Clive. Colleen Curran. Colleen Curran's many plays include Cakewalk, Ireland's own Carmen O'Reilly Tonight, and Godot at the Coconut Grove, which premiered at the Montreal Bloomsday Festival. Her latest novel, Out for Stars, made the long list for Stephen Leacock Medal for Humor. And her Kitty Calling, starring Deborah Hale and Lorna Wilson, was named Best Canadian Web Series by Now magazine. Her beloved sister. During nearly 30 years at the Gazette, Peggy Curran was an award-winning reporter, city columnist, feature writer, parliamentary correspondent, and editor. In her new life, she is a mosaic and collage artist. Selected work from her Imagined Brain series was on exhibit at Westmount's Victoria Gallery this summer. With her sister Colleen, she's the publisher of Bandstand Island Books. Silvia Simbolista is an artist, painter, living in Notre-Dame-de-Grâce. She also takes part in theatrical entertainments, one of which was Science on Stage, women's work, directed by Colleen Curran. Over the years, Susan Gilmore, whose deep roots are in Dublin and Mayo, has been involved in a number of community productions, including variety shows, stage plays, radio plays, and dramatic readings. She has performed with the Montreal Bloomsday Group since its inception outdoors at McGill University in 2011. The global Bloomsday reading of Ulysses in 2013 was a highlight, bringing together the world in a reading of the complete text. One of our presenters today is not with us. We will see her via a recording. Anne Lewis. Anne is a Belfast native and former journalist living in Montreal. She's a change facilitator, arts and science writer, host of the Do Don't Do Cafe podcast, positive intelligent quotient coach, credentialed PCC coach, and an ELAN teaching artist. Liam Phelan Cox was born in Clonmel, County Tipperary, during World War II. Like Joyce, he was schooled unsparingly in a Jesuit college from the age of 7, followed by university and 49 more years in the classroom as a teacher. For the last 4 decades, he's dwelt on Parc Saint-Henri, where he is currently the senior resident. Ellen Rubin has been an actor with Dramatis Personae, Westmount Community Theatre, for 13 years and an administrator, producer of their twice-yearly shows, and coordinator of the company for several years as well. Reading Ulysses and savoring the language makes Bloomsday a real holiday for her. These are our readers. Please welcome them. Now, I mentioned Bridget a few times already. The original Irish godmother is Bridget, whose feast day was celebrated on February 1st. In many legends, she's the foster mother of Christ. Akin to the fire goddess Bridget, she was the matron of healing, smithcraft, and poetry, and was lauded as the mistress of inspiration. A perpetual fire was tended by a group of nuns at her convent in Kildare, and it was only extinguished when Henry VIII dissolved the monasteries. The fire was relit in Market Square in 1993. Her feast day is celebrated in Ireland to commemorate the many accomplishments of women in Ireland and across the world. Today, to read a prayer written by Bridget herself and translated from the Irish by Brendan Conneely, please welcome Susan Gilmore Lombard. We'll see a different side of sainthood.
Thank you, Kevin. I'm glad you mentioned that part. Hello, everyone. I'm reading St. Bridget's Prayer. I'd like to give a lake of beer to God. I'd love the heavenly host to be tippling there for all eternity. I'd love the men of heaven to live with me, to dance and sing. If they wanted, I'd put at their disposal vats of suffering. White cups of love I'd give them with a heart and a half. Sweet pitchers of mercy I'd offer to every man. I'd make heaven a cheerful spot because the happy heart is true. I'd make the men contented for their own sake. I'd like Jesus to love me too. I'd like the people of heaven to gather from all the parishes around. I'd give a special welcome to the women, the 3 Marys of great renown. I'd sit with the men, the women, and God there by the lake of beer. We'd be drinking good health forever, and every drop would be a prayer.
Thomas More was a prolific writer of verse and history. He was a friend of Robert Emmet and Lord Byron, amongst others. His best-known collection, Irish Melodies, was based on the airs collected by Edward Bunting. To read a well-known piece about the true loyalty of a woman and a man for each other, despite what time throws in their way, please welcome Liam Phelan Cox. Believe me, if all those enduring young charms.
Believe me, if all those endearing young charms which I gaze on so fondly today were to change by tomorrow and fleet in my arms like fairy gifts fading away, thou wouldst still be adored as this moment thou art. Let thy loveliness fade as it will, and around the dear ruin each wish of my heart would entwine itself verdantly still. It is not while beauty and youth are thine own, and thy cheeks unprofaned by a tear, that the fervor and faith of a soul can be known, to which time will but make thee more dear. Oh, the heart that has truly loved never forgets, but as truly loves on to the close, as the sunflower turns on her God when he sets, the same look which he turned when he rose.
Thank you, Liam. Gerald Griffin was a playwright and a novelist. One of his novels, The Collegians, was dramatized under the title The Colleen Bawn. Griffin died very young of typhus in a Christian Brothers monastery in Cork. Peggy Curran will read another piece dealing with feelings of loyalty to a beloved. Please welcome Peggy Curran.
I love my love in the morning, for she like morn is fair. Her blushing cheek, its crimson streak, it clouds her golden hair. Her glance, its beam, so soft and kind, her tears, its dewy showers, and her voice, the tender whispering wind that stirs the early bowers. I love my love in the morning, I love my love at noon, for she is bright as the Lord of light, yet mild as autumn's moon. Her beauty my bosom's sun, her faith my fostering shade, and I will love my darling one till even the sun shall fade. I love my love in the morning, I love my love at even. Her smile's soft play is like the ray that lights the western heaven. I loved her when the sun was high, I loved her when he rose, but best of all, when evening's sigh was murmuring at its close.
Thank you, Peggy. Next, we have a piece by that most prolific of writers and composers. I'm sure you've heard of her, Anonymous. You've probably read other pieces by her down through the ages. This Belfast children's song describes a special relationship between a child and his or her Aunt Jane. My Aunt Jane, she took me in. She gave me tea out of her wee tin, half a bap and a wee snow top, and cinnamon buds out of her wee shop. My Aunt Jane has a bell at the door, a white stepstone and a clean swept floor, candy apples and hard green pears, and conversation lozenges. My Aunt Jane can dance a jig and sing a ballad round a sweetie pig, with red eyes and a cord for a tail, hanging in a bunch from a farthing nail. My Aunt Jane, she's awful smart. She bakes a ring in an apple tart. And when that Halloween comes around, for nance that tart, I'm always found. Watt Murphy, and that's not a question, his name was W-A-T-T. Watt Murphy was an 18th century poet and school teacher. He was Catholic and his Molly wasn't. Her father, the local vicar, disapproved and sent her away to exile in England. Brokenhearted, Watt wrote this poem about their ramblings along the banks of the River Suir. To read The Rose of Mooncoin, please welcome back Susan Gilmore Lombard.
Thanks again, Kevin. How sweet 'tis to roam by the sunny sure stream and hear the dove coo 'neath the morning sunbeam, where the thrush and the robin their sweet nose entwine on the banks of the Suir that flows down by Mooncoin. Flow on, lovely river, flow gently along. By your waters so clear sounds the lark's merry song. On your green banks I'll wander, where first I did join with you, lovely Molly, the rose of Mooncoin. Oh, Molly, dear Molly, it breaks my fond heart to know that we two forever must part. I'll think of you, Molly, while sun and moon shine on the banks of the Suir that flows down by Mooncoin. She sailed far away o'er the dark rolling foam, far away from the hills of her dear Irish home, where the fisherman sports with his small boat and line by the banks of the Suir that flows down by Mooncoin. Then here's to the Suir with its valleys so fair, as oft times we wandered in the cool morning air, where the roses are blooming and lilies entwine on the banks of the Suir that flows down by Mooncoin. Flow on, lovely river, flow gently along. By your waters so clear sounds the lark's merry song. On your green banks I'll wander, where first I did join with you, lovely Molly, the rose of Mooncoin. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Susan. Now, Sylvia Beach, as has already been mentioned, was a friend and benefactress of James Joyce. This afternoon, we have the honor of welcoming her to deliver the speech which she was supposed to give at the opening of James Joyce's museum. I'm sure she'll make us aware of whatever the circumstances were that prevented her. Miss Beach?
I'm so happy to be your guest of honor as we dedicate this Sandy Cove Martello Tower as a museum for James Joyce studies, and to be brought here in a horse-drawn carriage on Bloomsday in 1962. So I might recall how Ulysses came to be published in my part in that. To think that Martello Tower is where Ulysses begins with Buck Mulligan bearing a bowl of lather. This beautiful Dublin day is all about James Joyce, but then it was always about James Joyce. He felt that in Dublin he was persecuted, though I think he did as much persecuting as being persecuted. My dear French friend Adrienne christened him Crooked Jesus. She would warn me, he is so needy. And that was too true. She wanted me to devote more time to my Paris bookstore, Shakespeare and Company, and then to see to all his demands. And there were plenty of them. We had barely been acquainted when he asked me to find his family a 6-room apartment on the left bank. Adrienne was not happy when Joyce's daughter, Lucia, dropped off a long list of chores he wanted Adrienne to do for him because I was away. Of course, that included making doctor's appointments and dealing with bills he needed to pay. Oh, he was just terrible about money. But he had enough of it. I sold his book, sent him his royalties. His generous benefactor, Harriet Weaver, lived a meager existence so she could afford to give his family a monthly allowance. He was always borrowing money from Shakespeare and Company. I won't begin to tell you how many thousands of francs he owed me. But that's the way he was. Oh, but when he was flush, he would treat people to lunch at Maxim's and present them with bouquets of tulips. He was such a favorite with everyone. He was a great mixer. I had read his poems and short stories, and of course, Portrait of the Artist as a young man. I was in total awe of him, you see, long before I introduced myself to him at a party I wasn't even invited to. When the host told me the Irish writer James Joyce is here, I was so overwhelmed, I wanted to run away. That's true. I imagined Joyce in the clouds with all the gods. I never thought I would meet him. Now, he must have been very handsome when he was younger. And he had a very limp, weak little handshake. He was delighted that I had a bookstore and became a frequent visitor at Shakespeare and Company. He was a great star of that crowd and included Ernest Hemingway and F. Scott Fitzgerald and Gertrude Stein. But she despised Mr. Joyce. I was summoned to her salon so she could tell me to stay away from him. I didn't listen to her, even though she was very, very scary. Many passages of James Joyce's new work published in the Little Review in the States have been condemned and considered so obscene that the women editors were hauled off to jail in Greenwich Village. And so it came to pass that one day, there he was, so suppressed with his head in his hands, lamenting the fact that he had spent 7 years writing a book that no one would publish. So what could I do but say, would you like Shakespeare and Company to publish it? And he said, oh, yes, yes. Can you believe that? He let someone so young and inexperienced take on this big job for him. He wanted it to be published on February 2nd, 1922, which would be his 40th birthday. He thought that would be lucky for him. That was 11 months from then. Well, that was sure an arduous task. His handwriting was impossibly horrendous. It took 10 typists. My sister Cyprian was one of them, but not for long. She burst into my store. I can't. What is this? It's improbable. It's nonsensical. It doesn't make any sense. Look at me. I am an actress, and look what he has reduced me to in just 2 days. Another disaster occurred when a typist's husband judged it to be so filthy, vile, and disgusting that he set her pages on fire, along with the original handwritten ones. Luckily, John Quinn in New York had a copy. That took some doing, but I got it off him. I financed the publishing of the book through all kinds of means, my parents included. Joyce didn't care that every time he made corrections at the printers or insisted on adding more words, 30,000 of them, it had to be reset, costing me more money. Ulysses nearly bankrupted me, but the beautiful Greek blue first edition came out on his birthday, and I delivered a copy to his apartment on the day. It was a sensation, as you know. It was sold and it was sold and it was smuggled, and none of us ended up in jail. James Joyce was the one who insisted that he and I have a written contract, not me. And it was Joyce who insisted we ignore the conditions of it when it interfered with him getting a US publisher. If the US wanted it, I was owed $25,000 to relinquish all my rights, but they refused to pay. Many friendships and partnerships come with estrangements and even betrayal. Joyce never spoke up on my behalf to the Americans. He was relentless. He even sent an Irishman to my shop who yelled at me, "You're standing in Joyce's way." That's the problem with genius, you see. It doesn't mean that they'll be unselfish or heroic or mindful of others as long as they get what they want. They don't give a fig about the little people, and I don't mean the leprechauns. Yes, Joyce could be brilliant and charming, but he could be a real bad man. He whinged that Harriet Weaver and I were acting as if we had written Ulysses. He proclaimed, "I hate women who know anything." His poem, Poor Joyce St. James, was about 7 extravagant dames who had bees in their bonnets and bats in our belfries. Now, where would he be without the support of the likes of us? Good luck getting his blessed book published. Now, I don't call him out in any of my memoirs, and I don't even blame him for my 10 days in a monkey house. A member of the Gestapo came into Shakespeare and Company and said, "I want that copy of Finnegan's Wake that you have in the window." And I told him, "It's not for sale. It's the only copy I have." He got very angry, but I wouldn't let him have it, even though he said, "We Germans are very great admirers of James Joyce." He asked me if I had a Jewish girl working for me. "Of course I do," I said. He returned 10 days later, again wanting my copy of Finnegan's Wake. Again, I refused. He said, "We are coming back this afternoon to confiscate all your things." Well, that was some warning. We took care of that in 2 hours. All my dear French friends helped me. I was offered an empty apartment where we carted up all my books in baskets where they remained till the end of the war. We took away all the bookshelves, the tables, the chairs, and the final act, my friends painted off the front of the shop. When the Nazis returned, every sign of Shakespeare and Company was gone. And that put an end to that. Goodbye, my beautiful store. And the Nazis did come back a few months later and made me a prisoner of war with a whole lot of American British women. And the first place I was interred was a cage at the zoo. Yes, 10 days in the monkey house. But I can't blame James Joyce and Finnegan's Wake for that. Adrienne and Gertrude Stein would say I could, I suppose, but I won't. I was part of the French resistance. That could be why the Germans were mad at me. I worship James Joyce, and despite his many failings as a decent human being sometimes, look what we did together. Ulysses was published, and now he has a tower named after him, and all these people all over the world celebrating him today who call themselves Joyceans. Do you know of the poets Sylvia Plath and Ted Hughes? They chose June 16th for their wedding day because of Joyce and it being Bloomsday. A name I came up with. Did you know that? Yes, it was me in Paris. declaring that June 16th should hereby be called Bloomsday. And you want to know another thing about me? My real name is Nancy. But I changed it to Sylvia. That's neither here nor there, or great import, but oh well. Sometimes when people speak of Ulysses, they make mention of Sylvia Beach, and that is very nice. The greatest novel of the 20th century, and I am considered a literary figure of sorts because of my association with it. Because I said, yes, I will, yes, publish it. And on the evening of February 2nd, 1922, James Joyce came to Shakespeare and Company and presented me with something. And it wasn't champagne, and it wasn't a bouquet of tulips. It was this. Who is Sylvia? What is she? That all our scribes commend her. Yankee, young and brave is she, the West this grace did lend her, that all books might published be. Is she rich, as she is brave, for wealth of daring misses? Those about her rant and rave, to subscribe for Ulysses. But having signed, they ponder grave. Then to Sylvia let us sing. Her daring lies in selling. She can sell each mortal thing that's boring beyond telling. To her let us buyers bring. Now who can beat that?
Thank you, Ms. Beach. Nancy? Austin Clark was educated from an early age by the Jesuits. I guess he has something in common with you, Lee.
Very common.
The account of Joyce's life in Portrait of an Artist as a young man seemed like his own experience. He studied under Douglas Hyde and Thomas MacDonagh at University College Dublin. He succeeded MacDonagh in 1917 after MacDonagh was executed for his part in the Easter Rising. A planter was a man who bought land cheaply from the government and employed local people to work it. Thus, the daughter of a rich man might be expected to be haughty. The woman described here is a very down-to-earth young lady. To read The Planter's Daughter, please welcome Ellen Rubin.
Thank you, Kevin. The Planter's Daughter. When night stirred at sea and the fire brought a crowd in, they say that her beauty was music in mouth. And few in the candlelight thought her too proud, for the house of the planter is known by the trees. Men that had seen her drank deep and were silent. The women were speaking wherever she went, as a bell that is rung, or a wonder told shyly. And oh, she was the Sunday in every week.
Thank you, Ella. Joseph Campbell was born in Belfast in 1879. He eventually became the director of Irish Studies at Fordham University in New York during the 1950s. In this poem, Campbell tells of a woman whose beauty still radiates despite her age. Her experience of life still shines brightly. And even if her children have grown and gone, she still has her memories to keep her company. Please welcome Sylvia Simbalista.
The old woman As a white candle in a holy place, so is the beauty of an aged face. As the spent radiance of the winter sun, so is a woman with her travail done. Her brood gone from her, and her thoughts as still as the waters under a ruined mill.
In order for us to set up for the next presentation, we'll take a break for a few minutes while the projector is being set up. Now, we are going to have a draw at the end of our presentation today. So Louise is going to pass among you and give you some little pieces of paper. Please put your name on the paper. And when we are done at the end, we'll have a draw for some gift cards. Another announcement, on the table at the back are some papers supplied by the Westmount Public Library. If you'd like to sign up to their new library newsletter, there's a place for you to put your name and your email address. And I think, Daniel, are you distributing the pencils? Yes. And the papers, maybe? So we have about 5 minutes or so to be able to set up. So if you want to stand up and stretch your legs or whatever.
Yes. Absolutely not. And when I was well, that's what you do. I think that Yes. No, I don't. Yeah,
Very good. I enjoyed it very much. Need anything from you? I think we're good. When you're in farm.
Welcome back, everyone. Now, we go from the reminiscence of a very old woman to a presentation by a much younger woman, a young lady who is very much in touch with her Belfast roots and her Montreal wings. May I present a very familiar voice, Anne Lewis.
Hello, everybody. I'm Anne Lewis, and welcome to the Do Don't Do Cafe. I have for you today on the menu a sushi tray, some mixed hors d'oeuvres, and a box of sweets, which is my way of saying I've got a teeny tiny helping of poems. They span my entire life, actually, and they start with a photograph. Anne in Algiers, age 16. A photo of me in a borrowed jalabia over my circus-striped Speedo. I pose in a scarf dance on the Glare Terrace. My nails protrude, curved, ready to pounce on my pubescence. I trace the start of it to here, how I got taken away from myself. The next piece is related, called Those Teen Magazines. Be date ready. The haircut for a bad face day. No fail, what goes with what. It all meant I didn't go with me. All the being different, the feeling alone. I stick out because I jump to conclusions. I ignore common ground, pulling into the closed eyes of self-protection, bordering on blindness. The nervous passenger. My sister says when she gets off a plane, she expects to be thanked, applauded even. It was her concentration on the pilot and what happened with the dials that kept everyone safe in the air. Hatchets of rejection. Just yesterday, an editor told me, "We can't use the reference to your business." I thought he was evil, jealous, limiting. Turned out he was saying something much more reasonable. This reflex of mine, I haven't found a solution for it yet. And this one is much more recent. So you see, it's like this, Mom. I'm asking your permission. The squirrels, they're eating our lettuce and spinach and entire kales. I'd love to put your hat out there. You know, the Jacques Vert one. The one you wore for your golden anniversary, remember? It'd be in the rain though, Mom. Is that okay? Can you hear me? This has been a short offering from the Do Don't Do Cafe. And if you're interested in all the things that happen in the Do Don't Do Cafe, don't hesitate to get in touch with me at mecoaching.me. See you there.
Streets of Dublin on June 16th, 1904. Written supposedly in the form of a fugue with the voices of many characters mingling simultaneously, we get a picture of two young ladies, one with bronze-colored hair, the other gold, commenting on their lives. And we wonder if they really are the temptresses they seem to think they are. To read an extract from The Sirens, please welcome Clive Brewer.
Hello. Bronze by gold, Miss Douce's head by Miss Kennedy's head, over the cross blind of the Ormond bar, heard the vice-regal hoofs. I'm sorry, not getting enough light. Do you mind if I start again?
You need more light?
Well, I prefer light behind me, so I can. Yes, that does help. Thank you. I'm sorry about that. Bronze by gold, Miss Douce's head by Miss Kennedy's head, over the cross blind of the Ormond bar, heard the vice-regal hoofs go by, ringing steel. Is that her? Asked Miss Kennedy. Miss Douce said yes, sitting with his ex, Pearl Grey and Eau de Nil. Exquisite contrast, Miss Kennedy said. When all agog, Miss Douce said eagerly, look at the fellow in the tall silk. Who? Where? Gold asked more eagerly. In the second carriage, Miss Douce's wet lips said, laughing in the sun. He's looking. Mind till I see. She darted, bronze, to the backmost corner, flattening her face against the pane in a halo of hurried breath. Her wet lips tittered. He's killed, looking back. She laughed. Oh, wet. Aren't men frightful idiots? With sadness. Miss Kennedy sauntered sadly from bright light, twining a loose hair behind an ear. Sauntering sadly, to gold no more, she twined a hair. Sadly, she twined in sauntering gold hair behind a curving ear. It's them has the fine times, sadly then she said. A man, Blue went by Moulang's pipes, bearing in his breast the sweets of sin, by wine's antiques, in memory bearing sweet sinful words, by Carol's dusky battered plate, for Raoul. The boots to them in the bar, them barmaids, came. For them, unheeding him, he banged on the counter his tray of chattering china, and, there's your teas, he said. Miss Kennedy, with manners, transposed the tea tray down to an upturned lithia crate, safe from eyes. Lo, what is it? Loud Boots unmannerly asked. Find out, Miss Douce retorted, leaving her spying point. Your beau, is it? A haughty bronze replied, I'll complain to Mrs. de Massey on you if I hear any more of your impertinent insolence. Impertinent, Boots sniffed rudely as he retreated, as she threatened, as he had come. Bloom. On her flower, frowning, Miss Douce said, most aggravating that young brat is. If he doesn't conduct himself, I'll wring his ear for him a yard long. Ladylike in exquisite contrast. "Oh, take no notice," Miss Kennedy rejoined. She poured in a teacup tea, and then back in the teapot tea. They cowered under their reef of counter, waiting on footstools, crates upturned, waiting for their teas to draw. They poured their blouses, both of black satin, 2 and 9 a yard, waiting for their teas to draw, and 2 and 7. Yes, bronze from an ear by gold from afar, heard steel from a near, hoofs ring from afar, and heard steel hoofs ring, hoof ring steel. Am I awfully sunburnt? Miss Bronze unbloused her neck. No, said Miss Kennedy, it gets brown after. Did you try the borax with the cherry laurel water? Miss Douce half stood to see her skin askance in the bar mirror, gilded lettered, where hock and claret gases shimmered, and in their midst a shell. And leave it to my hands, she said. Or try with the glycerine, Miss Kennedy advised. Bidding her neck and hands adieu, Miss Douce, oh, those things only bring out a rash, replied, reseated. I asked that old fogey in Boyd's for something for my skin. Miss Kennedy, pouring now a full-drawn tea, grimaced and prayed, oh, don't remind me of him for mercy's sake. But wait till I tell you, Miss Douce entreated. Sweet tea, Miss Kennedy, having poured with milk, plugged both 2 ears with little fingers. No, don't, she cried. I won't listen, she cried. But Bloom? Miss Douce grunted in snuffy fogey's tone. For your what? Says he. Miss Kennedy unplugged her ears to hear, to speak, but prayed again. Don't let me think of him or I'll expire. The hideous old wretch. Oh, that night in the ancient concert rooms. She sipped distastefully her brew. Hot tea. A sip. Sipped. Sweet tea. Here he was, Miss Douce said, cocking her bronze head 3/4, ruffling her nose wings. Hoofa! Hoofa! Shrill shriek of laughter sprang from Miss Kennedy's throat. Miss Douce huffed and snorted down her nostrils that quivered imperfect like a snout in quest. Oh, shrieking, Miss Kennedy cried, will you ever forget his goggle eye? Miss Douce chimed in deep bronze laughter, shouting, and your other eye! Blue, whose dark eye read Aaron Figatner's name. Why do I always think Figather? Gathering figs, I think. And Prosper Laure's Huguenot name. By Bassie's blessed virgins, Bloom's dark eyes went by. Blue-robed, white under, come to me. God, they believe she is. Oh, goddess. Oh, those today I could not see. That fellow spoke. A student. After with Daedalus's son, he might be Mulligan. Oh, comely virgins. That brings those rigs of fellows in. White. By went his eyes. The sweets of sin. Sweet are the sweets of sin. In a giggling peal, young gold bronze voices blended. Douce with Kennedy, your other eye. They threw young heads back, bronze giggle gold, to let free fly their laughter, screaming, your other, signals to each other, high piercing notes. Ah, panting, sighing, sighing. Ah, fordone, their mirth died down. Miss Kennedy lipped her cup again, raised, drank a sip, and giggled. Miss Douce, bending over the tea tray, ruffled again her nose and rolled droll, fattened eyes. Again Kenny giggles, stooping, her fair pinnacles of hair, stooping. Her tortoise nape comb showed, spluttered out of her mouth her tea, choking in tea and laughter, coughing with choking, crying. Oh, greasy eyes, imagine being married to a man like that, she cried, with his bitter beard. Bruce gave full vent to a splendid yell, a full yell of full woman, delight, joy, indignation. Married to the greasy nose, she yelled. Shrill with deep laughter, gold after bronze, they urged each to peal after peal, ringing in changes, bronze, gold, gold, bronze, shrill deep to laughter after laughter, and then laughed more, greasy eye nose, exhausted, breathless, their shaken heads they laid, braided and pinnacled by glossy combed, against the counter ledge, all flushed, oh, panting, sweating, oh, all breathless, married to Bloom, to Greaser Bloom. Oh, saints above, Miss Douce said, sighed above her jumping rose. I wished I hadn't laughed so much, I feel all wet. Oh, Miss Douce, Miss Kennedy protested, you horrid thing, and flushed yet more. You horrid, more goldenly. Thank you.
Thank you, Clive. Richard Brinsley Sheridan was a dramatist, theater manager, and politician. In this song from The School for Scandal, sung by Sir Toby Bumper, women of all stations and conditions are praised for being themselves. To read Let the Toast Pass, please welcome back Peggy Kern.
Here's to the maiden of bashful 15. Here's to the widow of 50. Here's to the flaunting extravagant queen. And here's to the housewife who's thrifty. Let the toast pass, drink to the lass, I'll warrant she'll prove an excuse for the glass. Here's to the charmers whose dimples we prize. Now to the maid who has none, sir. Here's to the girl with a pair of blue eyes. And here's to the nymph with just one, sir. Let the toast pass, drink to the lass, I'll warrant she'll prove an excuse for the glass. Here's to the maid with a bosom of snow, and here's to the and to her that is brown as a berry. Here's to the wife with a face full of woe, and now to the girl that is merry. Let the toast pass, drink to the lass, I'll warrant she'll prove an excuse for the glass. For let them be clumsy, or let them be slim, young or ancient, I care not a feather. So fill the pint bumper quite up to the brim, and let us all toast them together. Let the toast pass, drink to the lass, I'll warrant she'll prove an excuse for the glass.
Now, I think before we hear the last piece on the program, I'd like to introduce Joanne Patry, who will tell us a little bit about this book.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. You might remember me from last year. A friend of mine, a very good friend of mine from high school, actually, one day we were talking and I saw some of his cartoons and he had done one of a rude one of Nora and James Joyce under a lamppost. And I said, well, you know, I go to these Bloomsday things here. And of course, we both know that they're all over the world. And we were putting on the opera. We were putting on an opera and concert, Riders to the Sea. And so anyway, he started putting together these caricatures with explanations of who the people were And he did it for the Bloomsday. The first time he did a few for Bloomsday about 3 years ago. And of course we had COVID, so he didn't come, but he continued and he's still working on a few more, by the way, but he has a collection here of 72 characters that were either friends, enemies, or influences of Joyce. So if you would like, I brought a couple of copies. I dropped them in the snow coming here. So I can give you a reduction on the price. They're normally $40 with tax, depending on the condition, maybe 35 or 30 if you're interested. So thank you for listening to me. And if you want a copy, come and see me. Thank you, Captain. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. If anyone thinks that Ulysses is difficult to read, he or she should try reading Finnegan's Wake. The last of Joyce's work and his densest, he uses words from 60 or more languages. Many of the words can be read in more than one way, adding to the fun of trying to figure it out. The words are part of a dream. Time means nothing. Characters merge into each other. Places slide in and out of each other. The last page is where the story begins and continues in a circle back to the first page. The dreamer is Humphrey Chimpton Earwicker, usually known as HCE, a publican whose wife is Anna Livia Plurabelle, usually known as ALP. She also happens to be the River Liffey, which flows from the Wicklow Mountains through Dublin and out to the sea through Dublin Bay. In the selection that I will read, Anna Livia Plurabelle is on her way. Even if the passing will be difficult, back to her origins, past Eve and Adam, past Hoth Head and environs, back to her father, the sea. For I feel I could near to faint away into the deeps. Anamoris, leap, let me lean just a lee, if you look. Bold, strong, big tider, Algiers is we at times, so while you're adamant ever. That wind, as if out of nowhere, as on the night of the Apophanites, jumps, shoots, throbs into me mouth like a bow and arrows. Lo, the good of the Lashlands, how he whips me cheeks. See here, where reach island, bridge, where you meet I, the day. Remember, why, there that moment, and us two only. I was but teen, a Tyler's dot. The swanky suits was boosting always. Sure him, he was like to me fat, but the swaggerest swell of Shackville strut, and the fiercest freaky ever followed, a pining child round the slippery table with a fork full of fat. But a king of whistlers, when he propped me Atlas against his goose and light our two candles for our singers' duos on the sewing machine. I'm sure he squirted juice in his eyes to make them flash for frightening me. Still in all, he was awful fond to me. Who'll search for find me colors now on the hilly droops of Viclofells. But I read in To Be Continued's tale that while Blubbles blows, there'll still be sealskers. There'll be others, but none so for me. Yet he never knew we seen us before, night after night, so that I longed to go, and still withal, one time you'd stand forninst me fairly laughing in your bark and tan billows of branches for to fan me coolly. And I'd lie as quiet as a mouse. And one time you'd rush upon me, darkly roaring like a great black shadow with a sheeny stare to pierce me rawly. And I'd frozen up and pray for thaw. 3 times in all, I was the pet of everyone then, a principal girl, and you were the Pantimamis, Vulcan Korsagoth, the envision of Indoland, and by Thor you looked it. My lips went livid from the joy of fear, like almost now. How? How, you said, how you'd give me the keys of me heart, and we'd be married till death to us part. And though death do us part, oh, mine only, no, now it's me who's got to give, as Dove herself div in this lin. And can it be it's now Forval? Illas, I wished I had better glances to peer to you through this baylight's growing. But you're changing, Akushla. So you're changing from me. I can feel. Or is it me? I'm getting mixed, brightening up and tightening down. Yes, you're changing. Son, husband, and you're turning. I can feel you for a daughter wife from the hills again, Lamea, and she's coming, swimming in my hindmost. Divil taken on me, tail, just a whisk, brisk, sly, spry, spink, spank, sprint of a thing. There's some ear, saltering, saltarella, come to her own. I pity your old self. I was used to. Now a younger's there. Try not to part. Be happy, dear ones. May I be wrong? For she'll be sweet for you, as I was sweet when I came down out of me mother. My great blue bedroom. The air's so quiet, scarce a cloud. In peace and silence, I could have stayed up there for always only. It's something fails us. First we feel, then we fall. And let her reign now if she likes, gently or strongly, as she likes. Anyway, let her reign, for my time has come. I done me best when I was let, thinking always, if I go, all goes. 100 cares, a tithe of troubles, and is there one who understands me? 1 in 1,000 of years of the nights. All me life I have been, lived among them, but now they are becoming lost to me. And I am lothing their little warm tricks, and lothing their meanies, cozy turns, and all the greedy gushes out through their small souls, and all the lazy leaks down over their brash bodies. How small it's all, and me letting on to myself always, and lilting on all the time. I thought you were all glittering with the noblest of carriage. You're only a bumpkin. I thought you the great in all things, in guilt and in glory. You're but a puny. Home. My people were not their sort, out beyond there. So far as I can, for all the bold and bad and bleary they are blamed, the sea hags. No, nor for all our wild dances in all their wild din, I can see myself among them. Alanuva pluribelt, how she was handsome, the wild Amasia, when she would seize to my other breast. And what is she weird, bright, haughty Niluna, that she will snatch from my ownest hair, for 'tis they are the stormies. Ho, hang, hang, ho, and the clash of our cries, till we spring to be free. Ora voles, they says, never heed of your name. But I'm loosing them, that's here, and all I loth. Lonely in me loneness, for all their faults, I am passing out. Oh, bitter ending, I'll slip away before they're up. They'll never see, nor know, nor miss me. And it's old and old, it's sad and old, it's sad and weary. I go back to you, my cold father, my cold, mad father, my cold man, fiery father, till the near sight of the mere size of him, the moils and moils of it, moaning and makes me sea silt salt sick, and I rush, my only, into your arms. I see them rising. Save me from those terrible prongs. 2 more, 1, 2, Mormons, more. So, Avalaval, my leaves have drifted from me. All but one clings still. I'll bear it on me to remind me of so soft this morning hours. Yes. Carry me along, Taddy, like you done through the toy fair. If I seen him bearing down on me now under white spread wings, like he'd come from archangels, I sink, I'd lie down over his feet, humbly, dumbly, only to wash up. Yes, Tid, there's where first we pass through the grass. Behush! The bush, to a gull, gulls, far calls, coming far, and here, us then, fin again, take, but softly, remember me, till thousands thee, the keys to, given, away, alone, a last, a love, along the river run, past Eve and Adams, from swerve of shore to bend of bay, brings us by a commodious vicus of recirculation back to Hoth Castle and environs. The end and the beginning. Now, there are many people to thank for helping to put on this event. I would first like to thank our readers whose voices brought the words on the page to your ears, and I think we owe them a round of applause. I would also like to thank the Westmount Public Library and Daniel Miguez de Luca in particular, who made this space available to us. Thanks to Impulsion Services for getting us online today with Dane Oberon operating the cameras, and his friend whose name I don't know, Daniel. Thank you. Our sponsors for the festival Bloomsday events throughout the years are the McGill Community for Lifelong Learning, also better known as MCLL, the Zellers Family Foundation, the St. Patrick Society of Montreal, the Embassy of Ireland, the Department of Canadian Heritage, the Concordia School of Irish Studies, and people like you, either in person or online, who turn out to see what we do. Otherwise, we'd just be talking to the walls and the ceiling. As you know, presenting such events is an expensive proposition. Despite the contribution of our sponsors, all the organizers are volunteers. And these are people such as Louise Cochon, who's over there, Robert Graham, David Sherman, who's sitting back there, Ashley Torvik, Susan Gilmore, who you've heard today, Carrie McElroy, Miles Murphy, Marlene Chan, who's sitting over there, Howard Trosnick, Jamie Solomon, who's sitting in the back over there, Kathleen, who is our artistic director, who's sitting back there, Jordan Giroux, Paloma del Castillo, and Samara O'Gorman. They've been working hard either to produce or to publicize the events of today and the events which will be happening in June. If you feel that you can offer your support, please go to www.bloomsdaymontreal.com and click on the Donate tab, which takes you to Canada Helps to make a donation. You will receive a receipt for income tax purposes from them. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you to the people who are watching us online. We have people all over the world. We have people in New York City. We have people in Korea. You name it.
New Zealand.
And New Zealand.
States.
Goremila Mahaga. We'll see you in June for the 12th edition of Festival Bloomsday Montreal. Please join us for a muffin and tea or coffee before you go home. But there's one last thing that we have to do before we leave, and that's the draw.
It's right there. So, yeah.
So we have 4 gift cards. June Hutchinson. It was worth coming to start here.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. June, would you mind doing the honors for number 2? More.
Yay. So she picks another name. There you go.
Thank you. Kathleen T.
I'll draw another name for her. Thank you very much.
Marlene Chan. Joanne Patrick. Thank you again, ladies and gentlemen, for coming. We'll see you in the hope.
Happy birthday. Happy
Is there anybody in this room who has to say on February 2nd, the same day as James Joyce?
Yeah.
We were born on February 2nd, and the father definitely the father James Joyce. Thank you very much again for coming. There should be some coffee left. I don't know if we're in muffins.
Yes, they are.
Please take something before you go.
Getting my.